Hey everybody, Ian from ianarthurs.com here with another video lesson for you. As usual, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So today's lesson is my 5 best tips for learning bar chords. And if you're just starting out with bar chords, or if you've been working on them but struggling with them a good bit, this video is for you. So we're going to get into it, but first, some information that you need to know. We're going to be working primarily with the major form off the low E string bar chord. So we call this the E form bar chord because it stems from the open E chord, and then you can just take that and move it up the fretboard to create what we call a movable shape. So we're going to use that as our main vehicle here to practice these bar chords. First off, my first tip for you is about thumb position with your left hand. The thumb position on your left hand is the source of all of your major technical adjustments. And what I mean by that is if you look at my left hand and if you see where my thumb is, if I have it wrapped up around the guitar, I don't have a lot of ability to stretch, for instance, my first finger over to reach for my bar chords. So I have to be in the center of the back of the fretboard to be able to reach that first finger across. So if you want to be able to play bar chords, make sure your thumb is not going too far up, whether it's wrapping the whole way or even if it's just kind of higher up around there. It should be, I'll show you here, in the back of the fretboard, laying flat on the guitar, kind of in the middle of the opposite side of what you're seeing from the fingers on the actual fretboard. So on the back of the neck should be pretty even in the middle with your fingers on the front of the fretboard. So that's number 1. Make sure your thumb position is good. Number 2, you don't want to put your finger too far over the fretboard. So I see a lot of people that when they're trying to get bar chords down, that first finger will extend really far past the entire guitar there, you can see. And I think that's pretty unnecessary, and I think it's going to create problems for other chords. You might have some short-term success getting that one chord down a little bit better, for instance, but I think it's going to hurt you when you try to transition or change chords. So you don't want to extend that first finger really far over the fretboard. I think you need to get it more just to the low E string, just barely past is okay. And then on all the rest of the 6 strings, of course. But yeah, you don't want to put it too far over the fretboard. Number 3, you need to put the fingers close up to the fret line. So when you're playing, if you play really far back, I'll use my 3rd finger, for instance, on the 7th fret of the A string, okay? So if I play really far back here, close to the fret line behind, so closer to like the 6th fret line, compared to the 7th fret here, it takes more pressure to play here. So you don't want to push down here. You need to make sure you can extend as close as you can up to the next fret line because it requires significantly less pressure for the same result. You get a much better tone with a lot less pressure. So it's a lot easier. That should be true for all of your fingers across all 6 strings. You want to try to get each finger pretty evenly close up to the next fret line because that's, once again, the best, most efficient way of playing. Okay, so tips number 4 and 5 are the 2 probably most important that I don't see get talked about a whole lot. Tip number 4 is going to be where you play on the fretboard. So if you play on the 1st fret, for instance, you have to push a lot harder in that area of the guitar right next to the nut. It requires a lot more pressure to play a note there than it does in the middle of the guitar. And I'm considering in this case the middle of the guitar roughly the range of like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th frets maybe is a good range to be in for your first finger to land on. So what those chords end up being is A major, for instance, B flat major, B major, and C major. Playing up in that middle area, it requires less pressure. There's less tension on the strings in that area compared to down here. The other thing is the frets are also a little bit smaller. The frets are the the widest apart low down on the fretboard. So if you're trying to play bar chords for the first time and you're playing down here, you're really going to struggle because they're farther apart, the frets themselves, and it requires you to push down harder. That's not a good way to set yourself up for success. So play in the middle of the guitar, and it's a little closer together and a little easier to push down. And tip number 5, the most important one here in my opinion, if you're struggling, especially if you've already been working on these and you're struggling a little bit, don't put your first finger down first. Because it's the first finger, people always think, oh, you start with number 1, right? That's not true. For bar chords, when you're trying to learn them, start with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers, get those in place, make sure you can hear them, so you can hear each one cleanly, and then go ahead and leave those in position the best you can, and then you need to get your first finger basically mashed down behind it as hard as you need to hear the low E, the B, and the high E. But you need to be able to get 2, 3, and 4 set first, because the first finger is stronger than those other fingers. It has an easier time of reaching back to that other fret than it does the other way around. If you start with that first finger on the guitar, push down really hard, now try to move your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, you're greatly limiting your mobility. And then once again, these are just not that strong. They don't have the strength or the flexibility to reach up, get into place, and push down hard if you're already exerting so much energy in your first finger. So start with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, then put your first finger down and see if that helps. The same can be true, we didn't really talk about the A form bar chord at all, but if you know that shape, which is this right here, so I'm playing same thing on the 5th fret, this is the one that has your 3rd finger across 3 strings, the D, G, and B strings, and then your first finger on the A string. Now, the first finger isn't really the one barring here, it's your 3rd finger. I would get your 3rd finger down first in this case, because once again, it's weaker, and it's taking, in this case, also more responsibility, and then try to reach your first finger back to only hit that one other string on the A string. So those are my 5 tips for learning bar chords. Like we said, if you've been struggling with this before, I hope this helps you out, and let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next one.